Sometimes the people who can't speak got the most to say. I learned that the hard way in August of '74, standing behind the counter of my diner in Millwood, Georgia, watching a woman write 3 words on a napkin with hands that shook like autumn leaves. I need work. She was deaf. Couldn't hear a word I said. Had burn scars running up her arms like a roadmap of pain, and eyes that looked like they'd seen the devil himself. Most folks would have turned her away. Hell, I almost did. But something about the way she held that pen, like it was the last thing tethering her to this earth, made me say yes. What I didn't know was that hiring her would cost me everything. My diner, my freedom, damn near my life. By the end of that summer, one of us would be standing at a grave. The question was, whose? But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning. The diner smelled like burnt coffee and regret that morning. I was scrubbing the grill, same damn grill I'd been scrubbing for 3 years, ever since I came back from the war and Linda walked out, when the bell over the door chimed. Didn't look up right away. Folks in Millwood knew I wasn't much for conversation before my second cup. But when I finally turned around, there she stood. Skinny thing in a faded dress, hair pulled back tight, clutching a canvas bag like it held the crown jewels. She walked straight to the counter, didn't sit, just pulled out a napkin from the dispenser and a pencil stub from her pocket. Wrote 3 words in careful letters, I need work. I stared at those words, then at her. She wouldn't meet my eyes, just kept her gaze fixed on that napkin like it might disappear if she looked away. Can you cook? I asked. She nodded. Can you hear me? She shook her head. I sighed, rubbed my face. The last thing I needed was complications. Business was barely keeping the lights on as it was. But something about the way she stood there, back straight, chin up despite the desperation leaking from every pore, reminded me of soldiers I'd known, the ones who'd lost everything but refused to quit. You got 15 minutes, I said, pointing to the kitchen. Make me breakfast. Eggs, bacon, biscuits, if you can manage it. She moved fast, didn't waste a second. Found the eggs, the bacon, the flour. Her hands, Lord, those hands, they were scarred bad. Burn scars, looked like. Ran up her forearms, disappeared under her sleeves. But they moved quick and sure, cracking eggs one-handed, flipping bacon without splatter. 12 minutes later, she slid a plate across the counter. I'll be damned if it wasn't the best breakfast I'd had in years. Eggs cooked perfect, bacon crispy, and biscuits, real biscuits, light and fluffy, the kind my mama used to make before the world went to hell. You're hired, I said. She wrote again. Thank you. My name is Shelley. Vernon, I said, tapping my chest. Vernon Briggs. You start now. $1.50 an hour, plus tips if we get any. Fair? She nodded so hard I thought her head might come loose. That's when Mitchell Crane walked in. I knew trouble the second I saw him. Crane owned the fancy steakhouse 2 towns over, place where rich folks went to pretend they weren't eating the same damn cow as the rest of us. Wore a suit that probably cost more than my truck, hair slicked back, smile that didn't reach his eyes. He stopped dead when he saw Shelley. Well, well, he said, voice smooth as motor oil. Thought I recognized that dress through the window. Shelley went stiff, backed toward the kitchen. She work here now? Crane asked me, ignoring her completely. That's right, I said. Interesting. He pulled a folded paper from his jacket, slapped it on the counter. That's a binding employment contract, signed 2 years ago. Miss Brennan here agreed to work exclusively for Crane's Steakhouse for 5 years. Non-compete clause. She don't cook nowhere else, or I sue. I picked up the paper. Legal gibberish mostly, but the signature at the bottom looked real enough. She ain't your property, I said. No, Crane agreed. She's my employee, under contract, which she breached when she ran off 6 months ago. Took my recipes with her, my techniques, 3 years of training I gave her, and this is the thanks I get. Behind me, Shelley was shaken, silent tears running down her face. Get out, I said. Crane smiled. You're making a mistake, Briggs. I got lawyers. You got what? A broken-down diner and a bad case of veteran's guilt? I said, get out. He straightened his tie. You'll be hearing from my attorney. And when you can't afford to fight, you'll send her back where she belongs. Mark my words. He left. Door jingled behind him. I looked at Shelley. She was writing again, hands shaking so bad she could barely form the letters. I'm sorry. I'll go. Don't want trouble for you. I took the pencil from her hand, wrote back on the same napkin. You ain't going nowhere. Let him bring his lawyers. She stared at those words, then at me, and I saw something in her eyes I recognized from my own mirror. Someone who'd forgotten what it felt like when somebody gave a damn. You hear me? I said, knowing full well she couldn't. You're staying. Outside, Crane's fancy car pulled away, and I knew, clear as day, I'd just made an enemy of the richest man in 3 counties. But some things are worth fighting for, even if you ain't sure you can win. That first week, Shelley moved through my kitchen like she'd been born in it. She was there before dawn every morning, kneading biscuit dough by lamplight. By the time I stumbled in at 5:30, coffee was already brewing and the griddle was heating. She didn't need instructions. Didn't need supervision, just cooked. The regulars noticed right away. Vernon, these eggs actually got flavor, Big Tom said, shoveling scrambled eggs into his mouth. He was a trucker, hands like catcher's mitts, hadn't smiled since his divorce. What did you do different? Got help, I said. The girl? He peered through the kitchen window. Shelley had her back to us, flipping pancakes. She deaf or something? Don't never hear her talk. She is, and she cooks better than anyone in this county. Tom grunted. Crane know she's here? He knows. That ain't good, Vernon. Man's got reach. Let him reach. But Tom was right to worry. By Wednesday, Sheriff Tompkins came by, sat at the counter, ordered coffee he didn't drink. Vernon, we need to talk. So talk. Crane filed papers. Says the girl stole from him. Recipes, techniques, trade secrets. Got a judge willing to hear it. She didn't steal nothing. Those recipes came from her head, not his. You got proof of that? I didn't. And Tompkins knew it. Look, he said, lowering his voice. I ain't saying Crane's right, but he's got lawyers. You don't. And if this goes to court, you're going to lose more than just her. He could take the diner for interfering with a legal contract. Then I guess I'll lose. Tompkins shook his head. You're a stubborn fool, Briggs. Been called worse. After he left, I found Shelley in the kitchen, hands gripping the counter edge. She'd been watching through the pass-through window, could read lips, apparently, knew exactly what Tompkins had said. She pulled out her notepad, wrote fast. I should leave, before you lose everything. No. Why are you doing this? I thought about that. Thought about David, my boy, and the letters I'd never read. Thought about coming home from Vietnam to an empty house and a note on the kitchen table. Thought about 3 years of eating alone, sleeping alone, waiting to die alone. Because it's right, I said finally. And I ain't had much practice at doing right lately. Figured it was time to start. She stared at me, then did something I hadn't seen yet. Smiled. Small thing, barely there, but real. That afternoon, Tommy Walsh came in with his mama, Sarah. Sarah worked the lunch shift when we were busy, which wasn't often these days. Tommy was 9, hadn't spoken since his daddy got crushed in a mill accident 2 years back. Carried a notepad everywhere, just like Shelley. Tommy saw her through the kitchen window and stopped dead. What is it, baby? Sarah asked. Tommy pointed. Wrote on his pad. She's like me. Sarah looked at Shelley, then at her boy. Yeah, honey, she is. Tommy walked straight into the kitchen. I started to stop him, but Shelley saw him coming. She turned, wiped her hands on her apron, and knelt down to his level. Tommy held up his notepad, showed her what he'd written. Hello, my name is Tommy. I don't talk either. Shelley's eyes filled. She took his pencil and wrote on the next page. Hello, Tommy. My name is Shelley. It's nice to meet someone who understands. Tommy grinned. First real smile I'd seen from that kid in months. They stood there writing back and forth while Sarah and I watched. Something passed between them, some recognition that didn't need sound. By the time lunch was over, Tommy had eaten 3 biscuits and drawn Shelley a picture of a horse. She taped it above the stove. Thank you, Sarah said to me on her way out. Whatever happens with Crane, thank you for this. Ain't done nothing. You gave my boy his smile back. That's something. But not everyone felt that way. Sunday after church, Pastor Rollins stopped by, stood on the sidewalk, wouldn't come in. "Vernon, I need you to reconsider this situation." "What situation?" "The girl. Crane's been to see the church council. Says if we don't encourage you to comply with the law, he'll withdraw his donations, the new roof fund, the youth programs." My jaw tightened. "So you're here to tell me to throw her out?" "I'm here to ask you to think about the greater good." "The greater good?" I laughed, bitter. "Pastor, I spent 2 years in Vietnam fighting for the greater good. You know what I learned? The greater good is just an excuse cowards use when they don't want to do the right thing." His face flushed. "That's not fair. Neither is asking me to sacrifice a woman who ain't done nothing wrong so you can keep your blood money." He opened his mouth, closed it, turned and walked away. That night, I locked up late. Shelley was still cleaning, like always. I helped her with the heavy pots. We worked in comfortable silence, her silence permanent, mine just tired. As I flipped the sign to closed, I saw them. 3 men across the street. Watching. One of them was Crane's restaurant manager. The other 2 I didn't recognize. They didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there under the streetlight staring. Message received. This wasn't over. Hell, it was just beginning. Monday morning, I found out what those 3 men had been planning. Opened the diner at 5 like always. Shelley was already there, had the coffee going. But when I flipped on the lights, I saw it. Spray paint across the front window. Red letters dripping like blood. "Harbor, a thief, become one." My stomach dropped. Shelley came out from the kitchen, saw it, and went pale. Her hand flew to her mouth. "It's just paint," I said. "We'll clean it." But we both knew it wasn't just paint. It was a declaration. By 7, half the town had driven past to see it. Some slowed down, shook their heads. Others laughed. Big Tom stopped in, looked at the window and said, "Vernon, this is getting out of hand." "I know." "You gonna back down?" "No." He sighed. "Didn't figure you would. You're gonna need help cleaning that." "I can handle it." "Didn't say you couldn't. Said you're gonna need help." He went to his truck, came back with a bucket and rags. "Let's get to work." We scrubbed for an hour. Paint came off, mostly, but left a ghost behind. Faint red letters you could still read if you knew what to look for. By the time we finished, my knuckles were raw and Tom's shirt was ruined. "Thanks," I said. "Don't mention it, literally. My ex-wife hears I helped you, she'll have my head." That evening, Doc Hollis stopped by. He was old, 73, maybe 74, but sharp as a new blade. Had delivered half the babies in Millwood, patched up the other half when they got into fights. "Vernon, got a minute?" "Always got time for you, Doc." He sat at the counter, looked around to make sure we were alone. "That girl, Shelley, she reminds me of someone." "Who?" "Can't place it yet. But I treated a young Vietnamese woman back in 72. Refugee, malnutrition, burns, PTSD. Helped her get work papers." He tapped his temple. "Memory ain't what it used to be, but I never forget a face. Or scars like that." Something cold settled in my chest. "You remember her legal name?" "I'd have to check my files. But if she's who I think she is, her paperwork might tell a different story than Crane's contract." "You think the contract's invalid?" "I think it's worth looking into." He stood, put his hat back on. "I'll dig through my records tonight. You keep that girl safe, you hear? And Vernon?" "Yeah?" "Some folks talk, some folks listen. You're the listening kind. Don't stop now." Wednesday afternoon, I got the call I'd been dreading. "Mr. Briggs, this is Dalton, attorney for Mitchell Crane. We've filed suit in county court. Breach of contract, theft of intellectual property, and interference with lawful business. You're being served papers tomorrow. I strongly suggest you retain legal counsel." "I can't afford legal counsel." "Then I suggest you convince Miss Brennan to return to Mr. Crane's employment voluntarily. It'll save everyone time and money." "She ain't going back." "Then you'll lose everything. Your diner, your savings, possibly your freedom if the judge finds you in contempt. Is she really worth all that?" I looked through the kitchen window. Shelley was teaching Tommy how to knead dough, both of them silent, both of them smiling. Sarah sat at the counter, watching her boy come alive for the first time in 2 years. Yeah, I said. She is. Dalton sighed. You're making a mistake. Wouldn't be my first. Thursday, Sheriff Tompkins came with the papers. Whole lunch crowd watched him walk in, official-like, badge catching the light. Vernon Briggs? You know damn well who I am, Tompkins. Just doing my job. He handed me the papers. Thick stack, legal words I couldn't half understand. Court dates in 2 weeks. You gonna get a lawyer? Can't afford one. Then you're gonna lose. Maybe. He looked at Shelley. Miss, you need to come down to the station. Answer some questions. She didn't do nothing wrong, I said. Judge says different. Says she's a flight risk. Wants her in custody until the hearing. Like hell. Tompkins put his hand on his belt near his gun. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The diner went dead quiet. Forks stopped moving. Conversations died. Everyone watching. I stepped between Tompkins and the kitchen. She stays. Vernon. She stays. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Then Tompkins did something I didn't expect. He nodded. All right, but if she runs, it's on you. And if Crane pushes harder, I can't protect you. Never asked you to. He left. The papers sat on the counter between me and my cold coffee. Sarah came over, touched my shoulder. Vernon, what are you going to do? I picked up the papers. 2 weeks until I stood in front of a judge and tried to explain why I'd thrown away everything for a woman I barely knew. 2 weeks to find a lawyer I couldn't afford. 2 weeks before Crane took it all. I'm going to fight, I said. Through the window, I saw them again. More this time. 5 men, maybe 6. Standing across the street. Watching. And I knew this was just the beginning. Friday night, I couldn't sleep. Sat at my kitchen table in the trailer, staring at the box I'd kept under my bed for 3 years. Cardboard, water-stained, held together with duct tape. David's letters, every single one he'd sent from Vietnam, still sealed in their army envelopes. I'd never opened them. Couldn't. Opening them meant accepting he was gone. Meant facing whatever last words he'd written, meant admitting I'd failed as a father. But Tommy's words kept rattling around in my head. Joey's brother wrote about a cook. She had scars. From a fire. He said she was brave. My hand shook as I pulled the first envelope from the stack. Postmarked March 1970. I broke the seal. Dad, I know you won't write back. You never do. But I'm gonna keep writing anyway. Met someone here. A girl from the village. Can't hear, but she can cook like nobody's business. Reminds me of home, of Mom before she left. Thought you should know I'm teaching her American food. She's teaching me to listen without ears. Funny how that works. Love, David. My vision blurred. I opened another. Then another. June 1970. Dad, Shelley's her name. The girl I told you about. House fire killed her parents when she was 5. Orphanage after that. Learned to cook from nuns. She's got scars on her arms, her neck. But when she cooks, she doesn't see the scars. She just sees the food. Wish I could see past my own scars that easy. September 1970. Dad, things are getting worse here. Lost 3 guys from my unit last week. Sometimes I think about running, just disappearing into the jungle. But Shelley keeps me grounded. She's teaching me sign language. Says words aren't the only way to say what matters. March 1971. Dad, if anything happens to me, find Shelley. She's got nobody. You're all she'll have. Promise me. I know I got no right to ask, but promise me anyway. The last letter was dated April 2nd, 1971, 2 weeks before he died. Dad, I'm sending her address with this letter. Village coordinates, orphanage contact. Promise me you'll look after her. She's family now. Maybe the only family I got left that matters. I love you, even if you can't say it back. David. I broke, sobbed like I hadn't since the funeral. Great heaving sobs that shook my whole body. 3 years of grief came pouring out on that kitchen table. My boy had sent me someone to save, and I'd almost turned her away. Saturday morning, I went to the diner early, 5 a.m., darker than sin. Shelley was already there, like always, saw my face and knew something had changed. I pulled the letters from my jacket. set them on the counter, slid the photograph across. David in uniform, arm around a young woman I recognized now. Younger, no visible scars, but the same eyes, the same gentle smile. Shelley's hand flew to her mouth. She grabbed the photo, tears instant. I handed her my notepad. She wrote, hands shaking so bad I could barely read it. David, he saved me. When Village burned, he pulled me out. I was trapped. Fire everywhere. He got me out. That's how I got burned. Saving me killed him later. Infection from burns on his hands. I tried to find you after war. Couldn't. No English. No money. Made it to America 1972. Worked for Crane. Hell. Ran. Found you by accident. Didn't know you were his father until I saw dog tags. Same name, same face and diner photo. I read it twice, 3 times. My boy had died saving her, and she'd spent 3 years looking for me, and Crane had used her desperation against her. Your family, I said, my voice breaking. You hear me? Family. She wrote, I don't have family. You do now. We stood there in that empty diner, dawn breaking through the windows, 2 broken people who'd found each other by accident or fate or divine intervention. Didn't matter which. Then I heard it. Engines. Multiple vehicles pulling up outside. I looked through the window. Sheriff's car. County vehicle. And Crane's Mercedes. Tompkins got out first. Walked to the door, knocked official-like even though it wasn't locked. Vernon, I got a court order. Judge says Miss Brennan's got to come with us until trial. Flight risk. She ain't going nowhere. It ain't optional. 2 deputies came in. Crane stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed, watching. Shelley didn't fight, just set down the photo carefully, like it might break. Looked at me with eyes that said everything words couldn't. Thank you, for seeing me, for knowing David, for trying. They put handcuffs on her, actual handcuffs, like she was a criminal. Led her out to the patrol car. The lunch crowd was gathering. Folks who'd come early heard the commotion. They watched in silence as the deputies put Shelley in the back seat. Tommy was there with Sarah. He ran forward, pressed his notepad against the car window. We'll get you back. I promise. Shelley pressed her hand to the glass. Tommy matched it on his side. Then they drove away. I stood on the sidewalk, watching the taillights disappear. Big Tom came up beside me. What now? He asked. I looked at the letters in my hand. My son's last words, his last request. Now? I said. Now I fight like hell. Crane walked past, close enough I could smell his cologne. Should have listened, Briggs. Now you lose everything. I grabbed his arm. He spun, startled. My boy died for her, I said quietly. So I ain't stopping. Not for you, not for any judge, not for anyone. You understand me? For just a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Fear, maybe, or recognition that he'd pushed a man who had nothing left to lose. He pulled his arm free. See you in court. But his voice wasn't quite as steady as before. Monday morning, I lost the diner. Mr. Paulson showed up at 6 a.m., hat in his hands, couldn't look me in the eye. Vernon, I'm real sorry about this. About what? He handed me an envelope. Crane made me an offer. 3 times what the property's worth. I got grandkids in college, medical bills. I can't say no to that kind of money. I opened it. Eviction notice. 30 days to vacate. You're selling to Crane? Already sold. Papers signed Friday. I'm sorry, Vernon. I truly am. After he left, I sat in the empty diner and laughed. Couldn't help it. Lost my son, lost my wife, lost my mind somewhere in the Mekong Delta. Now I was losing the only thing I had left. And for what? A woman I'd known 2 weeks? But then I thought about David's letters, about Shelley's hands on that photograph, about Tommy pressing his palm to the glass. Some things you don't walk away from, even when walking away makes sense. Sarah came in for her shift, took one look at my face. What happened? I showed her the notice. Oh, Vernon. Yeah. What are you gonna do? Gonna visit Shelley? Then gonna figure out how to fight a man with unlimited money and no conscience. You can't win this. Probably not. But I can make him work for it. The county jail was 20 miles out. Cinder block building, bars on the windows, smelled like disinfectant and despair. They led me to the visitor room, plexiglass partition, phone receivers on each side. Shelley came out in orange, face bruised, split lip. Rage flooded through me so fast I saw red. I grabbed the phone. She picked up hers, but it didn't matter. She couldn't hear me anyway. I pressed my hand to the glass. She mirrored it on her side. I mouthed slowly, "Who hit you?" She shook her head, pointed to her ears, the phone. Couldn't read lips through the static. Guard wouldn't let us use paper. "Contraband," he said. So we just sat there, hands pressed to glass, her crying silently, me trying not to punch through the partition. Finally, I mouthed 3 words over and over until she understood. "I'm getting you out." When I got back to town, Doc Hollis was waiting at the diner. "Found something," he said. Spread papers across the counter. Medical records from '72. Young Vietnamese refugee, treated for malnutrition and burns. Legal name on immigration documents, Shelley Brennan. Brennan was the orphanage name. Nuns gave it to her when her parents died. And Crane's contract? Doc pulled it out. Says Shelley Nguyen, her birth name. But that ain't her legal name, hasn't been for years. My heart started pounding. You're saying the contract's invalid? I'm saying the contract names someone who don't legally exist. Crane never verified her identity, just assumed. Can we use this? In court? Maybe. But you'd need a lawyer who knows what he's doing. Doc leaned forward. There's something else. Georgia Statute 19-818, adoption law, says if a deceased person documented intent for another to be considered family and material support has been provided, an adult can petition for legal adoption. Voids any pre-existing employment contracts because family members can't be held to contracts signed before the familial relationship was established. English, Doc. David's letters prove he intended Shelley to be family. You've provided for her, housing, work, protection. If you adopt her as your daughter, Crane's contract becomes worthless. Can't enforce an employment contract on a family member. She's 24. Don't matter. Adult adoption's legal in Georgia if both parties consent. Hope sparked in my chest for the first time in days. You think a judge would go for it? Judge Morrison's old school, believes in family, tradition, a man's word. If we can prove David's intent and Shelley's consent, he might just do it. Doc gathered his papers. But we'd need witnesses, people willing to testify that you've treated her like family, that David's letters show clear familial intent. I got witnesses. I thought of Tommy, Sarah, Big Tom, even Mrs. Patterson from church. Doc stood, put his hat on. Then we got a chance, slim but real. That night I was closing up when I heard the knock. Soft, hesitant. I opened the door. Pastor Rollins stood there. Wouldn't come inside. "Vernon, the church council met tonight." And? He pulled out a piece of paper, statement typed official-like on church letterhead. The Baptist Church of Millwood cannot support actions that defy legal contracts and godly order. Vernon Briggs is asked to comply with lawful authority or seek fellowship elsewhere. I read it again. You're kicking me out. We're asking you to reconsider. You're choosing Crane's money over what's right. His face reddened. It's not about money. It's about order, law, the community. The community. I laughed, bitter. Pastor, I got a question. When you stand before God, you think he's going to ask how much money you raised for a new roof? Or you think he's going to ask what you did when a woman needed help? He had no answer. I handed the statement back. Keep it. I don't need your fellowship. Never did. After he left, I locked the door. Stood in the empty diner. 30 days until Crane owned it. 2 weeks until trial. And a whole town that had decided choosing sides was too expensive. But somewhere in that jail, Shelley was waiting. And somewhere in my trailer, David's letters were calling me a coward if I quit now. So I wouldn't quit, even if it cost me everything. Hell, I'd already lost everything once. Might as well lose it for something that mattered. Wednesday morning, the courthouse was packed. Seemed like half of Millwood showed up, some to support me, most to watch me lose. Crane sat at the plaintiff's table in a suit that probably cost more than my truck, his lawyer beside him. Dalton, slick as oil, briefcase thick with documents. I sat alone at the defendant's table. Couldn't afford a lawyer, so I'd be representing myself. Judge Morrison would probably eat me alive, but at least I'd go down swinging. They brought Shelley in wearing that orange jumpsuit, wrists cuffed. The bruise on her face had yellowed. When she saw me, something in her eyes broke and mended at the same time. Judge Morrison entered. Old man, 70 if he was a day, face like carved granite. All rise. We rose. Be seated. Case number 74 CV 1929, Crane versus Briggs. Mr. Dalton, your opening statement. Dalton stood, smooth and confident. Your Honor, this is a simple matter of contract law. Miss Brennan signed a binding 5-year employment agreement with my client. She breached that contract by leaving without notice and taking proprietary information, recipes and techniques Mr. Crane spent 20 years developing. Mr. Briggs knowingly harbored a contract violator. We're asking the court to enforce the contract and award damages. Judge Morrison looked at me. Mr. Briggs, your response? I stood, hands shaking. Judge, I ain't a lawyer, can't talk fancy, but I know right from wrong. My son died in Vietnam saving that woman, pulled her from a fire, wrote me letters about her, called her family. When she showed up at my diner, I didn't know any of that, but I know it now. And family don't abandon family. Mr. Briggs, this court operates on law, not sentiment. Yes, sir, but sometimes the law's gotta bend for what's right. Dalton called Crane first. He testified about training Shelley, the contract, her theft of his recipes, made it sound like she was some kind of industrial spy. When it was my turn to cross-examine, I kept it simple. Mr. Crane, you ever touch her? Objection, Dalton shot up. Irrelevant. Sustained, Morrison said. Mr. Briggs, stay on topic. Did you threaten her? No. You're lying. Objection. Sustained. Mr. Briggs, accusations without evidence won't help your case. I sat down. Wasn't going well. Then Dalton called his surprise witness. Your Honor, we call Pastor James Rollins. My stomach dropped. The pastor walked to the stand, Bible in hand for the oath. Wouldn't look at me. Dalton smiled. Pastor Rollins, you know Mr. Briggs? Yes, he's been a member of my church. Would you describe him as stable? The pastor hesitated. He's troubled. PTSD from the war. Has he been violent? Once, he threw a man out of his diner. Physical violence? Yes. I stood. That man was grabbing Sarah. I was protecting. Sit down, Mr. Briggs. Morrison banged his gavel. Dalton continued. Pastor, in your professional opinion, is Mr. Briggs acting in Miss Brennan's best interest? Long pause. The church went silent. I believe he's acting out of guilt, not reason. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Mrs. Patterson stood up in the back. Shame on you, Pastor. That man's protecting her. Others joined in. He gave my daughter a job. Crane's the liar. Leave Vernon alone. Morrison's gavel cracked like thunder. Order. One more outburst and I clear this courtroom. When it quieted, the pastor stepped down, still wouldn't look at me. Morrison leaned back. I've heard enough preliminaries. Mr. Dalton, the contract appears valid. Miss Brennan must return to Mr. Crane's employment or face contempt charges. My heart sank. However, Morrison held up a hand. Mr. Briggs claims a familial relationship. That's a serious assertion that, if proven, would void the contract under Georgia law. I'll allow one final witness, but make it count, Mr. Briggs. I call Tommy Walsh, Your Honor. Dalton stood. Your Honor, a child witness? Children can testify if they understand the oath. Bring him in. The bailiff opened the door. Tommy walked in, Sarah behind him. He looked so small climbing into that witness chair, his notepad clutched in both hands. The clerk approached with a Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth? Tommy nodded. Let the record show the witness communicates through writing. Morrison looked at Tommy kindly. Son, take your time. Write what you need to say. Tommy opened his notepad, pulled out folded papers, handed them to the bailiff. David's letters. Morrison put on his reading glasses, read silently. His expression shifted, skepticism to surprise to something softer. He read one aloud. March 15th, 1971. Dad, if anything happens to me, find Shelley. She's got nobody. You're all she'll have. The courtroom held its breath. Morrison looked at Shelley. Miss Brennan, did you know about these letters? She shook her head, tears streaming. The judge turned to Tommy. Son, how did you get these? Tommy wrote, Mr. Vernon showed me. He kept them, never read them until last week, because it hurt too much. And what's your connection to all this? Tommy wrote carefully, My daddy died 2 years ago. I stopped talking. Miss Shelley came to the diner. She don't talk either. She understands. She gave me biscuits and smiled at me. Nobody smiled at me for a long time. Morrison's voice softened. Go on. Tommy looked at Shelley, then at me, took a deep breath, and spoke. She saved me. Sarah gasped. Hands flew to her mouth. Son? Morrison leaned forward. You're speaking? Tommy's voice cracked, small and uncertain. My daddy died. I stopped talking. Nobody could make me. Then Shelley came. She don't talk either. But she listened, with her eyes. She made me feel heard. He looked right at the judge. That's family. That's what Mr. Vernon's son meant. She hears people nobody else hears. The courtroom erupted. Not in chaos, in tears. Mrs. Patterson openly wept. Big Tom wiped his eyes. Even the bailiff looked away. Morrison banged his gavel softly. Order, please. When it quieted, he removed his glasses, rubbed his eyes. This court will recess for 1 hour while I review the legal precedents. We reconvene at 2 o'clock. He stood. Everyone rose. As he left, I heard Crane hiss at Dalton. If I lose, that diner burns tonight. I don't care what it takes. Sheriff Tompkins heard it too. That a threat, Crane? Just stating facts, Sheriff. Accidents happen. I looked at Sarah, at Tommy, at Doc Hollis in the back row. 1 hour. That's all we had. 1 hour until a judge decided if love mattered more than contracts. 1 hour until Crane made good on his threat. 1 hour until everything ended. The hour felt like a lifetime. I sat on the courthouse steps, head in my hands. Sarah and Tommy beside me. Doc Hollis pacing. Big Tom smoking, even though he'd quit 5 years back. What do you think he'll do? Sarah asked. Don't know. Morrison's fair, but he's also old school. Law's the law to him. Tommy spoke. Sarah's voice cracked. My baby spoke for the first time in 2 years because of her. Tommy leaned against his mama, still holding his notepad. Wrote something. Showed it to me. Will Miss Shelley come home? I hope so, buddy. I really do. Inside, through the courthouse windows, I could see Crane and Dalton conferring. Crane looked confident. Too confident. At exactly 2 o'clock, the bailiff called us back in. Morrison entered, carrying a leather-bound book. Law journal, looked like. Old one. Be seated. He set the book down, looked at the packed gallery. I've spent the last hour reviewing Georgia adoption statutes, immigration law, and contract precedents. This is an unusual case. My heart hammered. Mr. Dalton, your client's contract is dated 1972 and signed by Shelley Nguyen. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. And Miss Brennan's legal immigration documents, entered into evidence by Dr. Hollis, show her legal name as Shelley Brennan, correct? Dalton shifted. The defendant used a false name to evade. Did your client verify her legal identity when she signed? Pause. We relied on her verbal. That's a no. Morrison made a note. The contract names a party who doesn't legally exist. That's a fundamental defect in contract formation. Dalton stood. Your Honor, we can amend. You can't amend a contract that was never valid to begin with. Morrison turned to me. Mr. Briggs, you're claiming a familial relationship based on your deceased son's documented intent? Yes, sir. And you wish to formally adopt Miss Brennan under Georgia Statute 19-818? If she'll have me, yes, sir. Morrison looked at Shelley. Miss Brennan, do you understand what's being proposed? Legal adoption would make you Mr. Briggs' daughter in the eyes of the law. Do you consent? Shelley nodded frantically, tears streaming. Verbal or written consent is required for the record. The bailiff brought her a notepad. Her hands shook so bad she could barely write. Held it up. Yes, please. Yes. Morrison read it. His face softened. Just for a second, but I saw it. Mr. Dalton, under Georgia law, family members cannot be held to employment contracts signed prior to the establishment of familial relationship. If I grant this adoption, your client's contract becomes unenforceable regardless of the name issue. Dalton's face went red. Your Honor, this is a transparent attempt to circumvent. This is a father honoring his dead son's last wish. Morrison's voice went hard. I've read those letters, Counselor. David Briggs specifically asked his father to care for this woman, called her family. That's not circumvention. That's fulfilling a promise to the dead. The courtroom was dead silent. Morrison opened the old law book. There's precedent here. 1953, Collins versus State. Court ruled that familial bonds established through documented intent of a deceased party carry legal weight in adoption proceedings. 1967, Hartley versus Hartley. Adult adoption granted based on long-standing emotional and material support, even without biological relation. He closed the book. Looked at me. Mr. Briggs, you're a veteran. Served 2 tours in Vietnam. Lost your son in that war. Came home to a broken marriage and an empty house. By all accounts, you spent 3 years barely surviving. Then this woman walked into your diner, and for reasons I suspect you don't fully understand yourself, you decided she was worth fighting for. My throat tightened. The law isn't just words on paper. It's the framework we use to protect what matters. Family matters. Honor matters. A father's promise to his dying son matters. He looked at Crane. Money doesn't. Crane half stood. Your Honor, this is... Sit down, Mr. Crane. Morrison's voice could have frozen hell. I'm not finished. Crane sat. Morrison picked up his gavel. By the power vested in me by the state of Georgia, I hereby grant the petition for adoption. Shelley Brennan is declared the legal daughter of Vernon Briggs, effective immediately. The gavel fell. The courtroom exploded. People cheering, crying, hugging. Mrs. Patterson shouted, Hallelujah! Sarah was sobbing. Tommy was grinning ear to ear. Morrison banged his gavel. Order! I'm still not done. When it quieted, he turned to Crane. Mr. Crane, your contract is void. Your lawsuit is dismissed. And if I ever see you in my courtroom again trying to use the law to bully vulnerable people, I'll hold you in contempt. Are we clear? Crane's face was purple. This isn't over, Briggs. Mr. Crane. Morrison's voice went deadly quiet. I just heard you threaten arson in my courtroom. Sheriff Tompkins heard it too. You want to add to your problems today? Tompkins stood, hand on his belt. Crane stood abruptly. Come on, Dalton. We're leaving. They walked out. The door slammed behind them. Morrison looked at the bailiff. Release Miss Brennan from custody. They unlocked her handcuffs. She stood, rubbing her wrists, looking lost. Miss Brennan, Morrison said gently, you're free to go. Your father's waiting. She looked at me. I opened my arms. She ran, collapsed into me, sobbing. I held her tight. This woman my son had loved. This daughter I'd gained through grief and grace, and a dead boy's letters. You're home, I whispered. You're safe. You're home. Behind us, the courtroom was still cheering. Tommy ran up, hugged Shelley around the waist. Sarah joined. Doc Hollis, Big Tom, Mrs. Patterson. We stood there, this patchwork family, this chosen tribe, holding each other while the judge watched with something like satisfaction on his granite face. But outside, through the courthouse windows, I saw Crane getting into his Mercedes. And I knew, with the certainty of a man who'd survived ambushes in Vietnam, this wasn't over. He'd lost in court, which meant he'd fight somewhere else, somewhere the law couldn't reach. We walked out of that courthouse into late afternoon sun, free, legal, family. But freedom's got a price, and I knew Crane wasn't done collecting. Sarah drove Shelley and me back to the diner. Tommy rode in back, still grinning, still talking, words tumbling out like he was making up for 2 years of silence. Can Miss Shelley teach me to cook? Can she stay forever? Are you really her dad now? Yeah, buddy, I really am. Shelley sat in the passenger seat, staring at her hands. No cuffs, no orange jumpsuit, just her own clothes that Sarah had brought. She kept touching her wrists like she couldn't believe they were free. When we pulled up to the diner, Doc Hollis was waiting. Big Tom, too, and about 15 other folks from town. They'd strung up a banner. Welcome home, Shelley, Mrs. Patterson had brought a casserole. Someone else had flowers. It was like a damn parade. Shelley got out of the car slow, looking at all of them. These people who'd watched her get arrested, who'd whispered about her, who'd seen the church turn against her, now they were clapping. She turned to me, eyes questioning. They're saying welcome home, I said. She started crying again. Happy tears this time. We spent the evening in the diner, me cooking for once, Shelley sitting at the counter like a customer, Tommy chattering nonstop. Folks drifted in and out, shaking my hand, hugging Shelley, bringing food. Around 8, the crowd thinned. Just me, Shelley, Doc, Sarah, and Tommy left. We were cleaning up when I noticed it. Smell of gasoline. I went to the window, looked out. Crane's car was parked across the street, and a man I didn't recognize was pouring something from a can around the building's foundation. Everyone out, I said quietly. Now! Vernon? Doc saw my face. Out! We scrambled. I grabbed the fire extinguisher, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. The man lit a match. I charged through the door. Hey! He turned, dropped the match. Fire caught, spread fast along the gas trail. I tackled him. We went down hard on the sidewalk. He was bigger than me, younger, but I'd learned to fight dirty in Vietnam. Knee to the gut, elbow to the face. He went limp. Behind me, flames were climbing the diner's wall. Tommy pulled the fire alarm. Within minutes, the volunteer fire department arrived. Half the town came with buckets, hoses, anything that held water. We fought that fire for an hour, formed a human chain from the well to the building, passed buckets hand to hand. Shelley worked beside Mrs. Patterson, beside Big Tom, beside the sheriff. The kitchen was destroyed, but we saved the dining room. When the smoke cleared, I stood on the sidewalk covered in soot, watching my diner smolder. The arsonist was already in Tompkins' patrol car. Sheriff came over, notepad out. He's talking. Says Crane paid him $500 to burn you out. Can you prove it? He's willing to testify. Scared of doing time for arson. Crane's looking at conspiracy charges. I watched Crane's car pull away from across the street. Coward didn't even stay to watch. He loses his business over this? I asked. Probably. Arson conspiracy's serious. Plus, word'll spread. Nobody's gonna eat at his restaurant once this gets out. Sure enough, within a week, Crane's steakhouse was empty. Staff quit. Customers stopped coming. By the end of the month, he'd sold the place for pennies and left Georgia. Never saw him again. But that night, standing in front of my half-burned diner, I didn't know any of that yet. Just knew I was tired. Bone tired. The kind of tired that settles in your soul. Shelley came and stood beside me, looked at the damage, wrote on her notepad, "I'm sorry. But this is my fault." I took her pencil, wrote back, "This is Crane's fault, and he's going to pay." She wrote, "We lost the diner. We'll rebuild. With what money?" I didn't have an answer for that. Then Mrs. Patterson stepped forward, pulled an envelope from her purse. "Vernon, the church took a collection. $3,000. It ain't much, but it's a start." Big Tom added his own envelope. "Truckers Union kicked in $2,000. Heard what happened. We take care of our own." One by one, people came forward. Tens, 20s, hundreds. Some just a few dollars. But it added up. By the time the last person left, we had nearly $8,000 sitting on the counter. Doc counted it twice. That's enough to rebuild the kitchen, maybe more. I looked around at these people, these neighbors who'd stood by me when I had nothing to offer in return. Thank you, I managed. Mrs. Patterson patted my hand. That's what family does, Vernon. And you taught us what family means. Later that night, after everyone left, I sat with Shelley in the damaged diner, moonlight coming through the smoke-stained windows. She wrote, "Why did you do all this? For me?" I thought about David's letters, about 3 years of living like a ghost, about Tommy speaking for the first time, about this woman who couldn't hear but who'd taught a whole town to listen. Because my son asked me to, and because you reminded me what it means to be alive. She smiled, took my hand, squeezed it. We sat there in the ruins of my diner, father and daughter, two broken people who'd somehow made each other whole. Outside, the sun was rising, first light touching the mountains, new day coming, time to rebuild. Spring came to Millwood like a promise kept. We rebuilt the kitchen in 6 weeks. Whole town pitched in. Big Tom handled the heavy work. Doc supervised. Sarah organized shifts. Tommy, still talking, still smiling, ran supplies. And Shelley, she designed every inch of that kitchen, showed me drawings, measurements, where every pot and pan should hang. Couldn't hear my suggestions, but didn't need to. She knew exactly what she wanted. Opening day was April 15th, 1975. Year after Nixon resigned. Year after everything changed. The line stretched around the block. New sign above the door. Vernon Shelley's Diner. Family cooking. We served 200 people that day. Shelley in the kitchen, me working the counter, Sarah waitressing, Tommy bussing tables. Moved like we'd been doing it forever. Around noon, the door opened. Pastor Rollins walked in. Conversation died. Forks stopped moving. Everyone watched. He stood there, hat in his hands, walked slowly to the counter. Vernon. Pastor. Long silence. Then he pulled out his notepad, wrote carefully, slid it across to Shelley. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I chose safety over righteousness. I chose money over mercy. Can you forgive me? Shelley read it again, looked at me. I nodded. Her choice. She picked up the pencil, wrote one word. Yes. The pastor's eyes filled. Thank you. He looked at me. I resigned last month. Told the church I lost my way. I've been trying to find it again. You find it yet? Getting there, mostly by watching what you did, what she did, what this town became when y'all showed us what family really means. He held out his hand. I took it. Folks started clapping. Small at first, then building. The pastor sat down, ordered breakfast. Shelley made him eggs and biscuits, same as everyone else. No special treatment, no grudges, just food, just family. That evening, after we closed, I found something taped to the door. Envelope with my name on it. Inside, a deed. The building deed. Note attached in Mrs. Patterson's handwriting. Town took a collection. Bought the property from Crane's estate sale. It's yours now. Free and clear. No more rent. No more fear. Welcome home. I stood there staring at it. My diner, my building, my home. Shelley came outside, saw me crying, touched my arm, question in her eyes. I showed her the deed. She covered her mouth, started crying too. We stood there on that sidewalk, father and daughter, holding each other while the sun set behind the mountains. 6 months later, Tommy started working weekends. Wanted to be a chef, he said. Shelley was teaching him everything she knew. Linda came by sometimes. My ex-wife. We didn't talk much, but it wasn't angry anymore, just sad. The way two people who'd loved each other once and lost everything could manage to be civil. She sat in David's old booth one Sunday, ordered coffee, watched Shelley cook. She's good for you, Linda said when I brought the coffee. Yeah. David would have liked this, seeing you happy again. I know. I'm sorry I left, Vernon. When you needed me most. I'm sorry I gave you reasons to. We sat there in comfortable silence. Some wounds don't heal, but they stop bleeding eventually. The diner became the heart of Millwood. People came not just for food, but for the feeling, like they belonged, like someone gave a damn. Shelley taught sign language classes on Tuesday nights. Tommy was her best student. Soon, half the town could sign, "Thank you," and "I love you," and "Welcome home." Doc Hollis still came every morning. Same booth, same coffee. Said he'd retire when he died, not before. Big Tom brought his daughter by, teenager, shy, scared of the world. Shelley took one look and hired her on the spot. Taught her to cook, gave her something to be proud of. That's what Shelley did. Saw the broken ones, fed them, listened to them, made them whole again. One evening, closing up, I hung a photograph on the wall. Two photos, actually, side by side. First, David in Vietnam, arm around young Shelley, both smiling despite the war. Second, me and Shelley at the adoption ceremony, Judge Morrison between us, all three of us grinning like fools. Shelley saw it, touched both photos, looked at me with tears streaming. I wrote on her notepad, "He'd be proud of us." She wrote back, "He brought us together, even after he was gone. That's love. That's family." She nodded, squeezed my hand. We turned off the lights together, locked the door, walked to my truck. Our truck now. Tommy was asleep in the back seat. We'd given him a ride home, same as always. Drove through Millwood, quiet little town. Dying once, living again. Past the spot where Crane's restaurant used to be. Empty now. Windows dark. Nobody wanted it. Town had long memories. Pulled up to Sarah's house. She came out, scooped up Tommy, waved goodnight. Then home. The trailer behind the diner. Small, but ours. Inside, Shelley made tea. We sat at the kitchen table, same table where I'd read David's letters that first time, where everything changed. She pulled out her notepad, wrote something, slid it across. "Thank you for saving me." I took the pencil, wrote back, "You saved me first." We sat there in the lamplight, two people who'd been lost, who'd found each other through grief and grace and a dead soldier's letters. Outside, the stars came out, clear night. No clouds, just endless sky. David's dog tags still hung from my rearview mirror. I'd never take them off, but they didn't hurt to look at anymore. They reminded me of something good, something worth dying for, something that lived on even after death. Family. Not the kind you're born into, the kind you choose, the kind that chooses you back, the kind that stays. You know, some folks spend their whole lives talking about family like it's something you're stuck with. Blood and obligation. Names on a family tree that don't mean much beyond Christmas cards and funerals. Vernon and Shelley taught Millwood different. Families who stays when the fire comes. Who fights when the law fails. Who stands when everyone else sits down. That's it. That's the whole damn thing. Tommy Walsh spoke for the first time in 2 years because someone finally listened. Not with ears, with heart. That's what Shelley gave him. That's what Vernon gave her. That's what family does. Mitchell Crane lost everything, not because of some judge or some law, because a town decided that money don't buy dignity, power don't buy respect. He left Georgia broke and bitter. Last I heard, he was managing a Waffle House outside Tuscaloosa. Funny how things work out. Pastor Rollins found his faith again. Took him a while. He volunteers at the diner now, washes dishes, says it keeps him humble. Shelley still feeds him for free. That's grace. Vernon never remarried Linda, but they talk now. She comes by sometimes, sits in David's old booth, says Shelley's cooking tastes like forgiveness. Maybe it does. The diner's still there. Best food in 3 counties, not because it's fancy, because it tastes like what food's supposed to taste like someone gives a damn. And Shelley, she smiles now. Real smiles, the kind that reach your eyes. Still can't hear, still got scars, but she ain't broken anymore. She's home. This story ain't really about a diner or a contract or a courtroom. It's about what happens when one person decides another person matters, when you choose family over fear, when you stand up even when standing costs everything. David Briggs died in Vietnam in 1971, but he didn't die for nothing. He died saving Shelley, and Shelley saved Vernon, and Vernon saved Tommy, and Tommy saved a whole town's conscience. That's how grace works. One life touches another, then another, then another. until the whole damn world shifts. You listening to this story right now, maybe you're alone, maybe you're hurting, maybe you think nobody sees you, nobody hears you, nobody cares. Let me tell you something Vernon told Shelley the night they became family. Family ain't always the people you're born to. Sometimes it's the people who refuse to let you go. So if you're holding on by a thread tonight, hold on. Because somewhere out there, there's a Vernon looking for a Shelley, or a Shelley looking for a Vernon. And when you find each other, that's when the real story starts. This story's for everyone who ever felt invisible. You ain't. Somebody sees you. Keep going. If this story touched something in you, if you got a Vernon or a Shelley in your life, leave a comment. Tell me where you're listening from. Tell me who your family is, the ones who chose you when they didn't have to. And if you're still looking, stay strong. Your people are out there. Until next time, may your table always have room for one more. And may your door stay open to the ones who need it. And may you never forget, dignity ain't given, it's claimed. And family ain't found, it's made. This is your narrator, signing off from Millwood, Georgia, where a deaf woman and a broken veteran taught a town what family really means. God bless, and keep listening.